Well, peace activist Ken O'Keefe joins us now on the phone. Ken, thank you very much for joining the bulletin. Now, is the troops' withdrawal the first signs of stability in the region, or do you think Kiev will retaliate elsewhere?
Well, I think the primary thing to acknowledge is that the motivation of the Kiev regime, backed by the American empire and its allies, is not a genuine seeking of peace. It doesn't appear to me to be really much different from, say, the invasion of Iraq in 2003, in that all of the politicians and all of the pundits will say that, of course, they want peace, but the actions actually indicate the opposite. And I would say that clearly when we look at Victoria Nuland and the billions that were put into Ukraine to stir the pot, and we look at the actions of the United States government in particular, it's obvious to me, and I think anybody who's observing accurately, that the motivation is not for peace, not at all. And in fact, we see NATO expanding. Russia has every reason and every right to be deeply disturbed by the actions of America and NATO, which is nothing more than an extension of the empire. So I would not say that anything has changed in that regard. So no, I don't believe that this is necessarily going to be the end. But alongside with the motivation and understanding that, we see that the Ukrainian people on the ground really don't have an interest in this. And that does hold some promise that this conflict will end.
Now, I mean, despite Poroshenko calling the troop withdrawal a planned withdrawal, does this highlight their weakness in this ground offensive?
It does indeed. And again, we have to look to, there are serious numbers of defections. Many of the Ukrainian soldiers are dropping their weapons, and they're also revealing, there are some reports that even Ukrainian forces have been deployed to try and prevent further defections. The morale is very, very low. In fact, you have brothers killing brothers, and this is also, you have women and children caught in the mix. This is not a war that any population would want to fight, and the motivation for fighting such a war is extremely low. So there is promise that more and more of the Ukrainian people will see this for what it is and simply refuse to participate.
I mean, all these latest developments, Ken, where does this leave the Minsk peace talks?
Well, I do believe that this is a fairly sound agreement, in that if indeed we can find some real commitment to it on the Ukrainian side, that the Russian side has proven with many provocations that it is interested in this problem being resolved. I don't believe for a second that Russia has an interest in a broken, completely failed state in Ukraine. This is really not good for them. So I do believe that their interest is to honor the agreement, and hopefully the Ukrainian side will also do so. It does hold the promise of a better future.
Just moving on slightly, Ken, Cameron has taken it upon himself to lead on the Russian sanctions rhetoric. What does he have to gain from putting pressure on Russia?
Well, I would say that the policy of the UK, as with Europe in general, is clearly this does not benefit the people of the United Kingdom. It does not benefit the people of Europe. This is a disastrous policy for Europe as a whole, and it would appear as if the American empire is pulling the strings of all of these puppets in government, because there is no good reason to carry out this policy. I defy anybody to explain why it would be beneficial to the United Kingdom or to Europe to carry out sanctions, which is a form of economic warfare, against Russia, who is an incredibly important partner in this part of the world, much more so for Europe than it is for America. But again, apparently, this doesn't matter. That doesn't factor into the equation. I would argue that Cameron works for the bankers. He doesn't work for the people, so he doesn't have to answer to the people. He answers to the bankers.
We're just going to have to leave it there. Ken O'Keefe, peace activist, thank you very much for your time.